Da, 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know I've gone live. And in the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I was just giving myself a little bit of a chuckle. Yesterday I committed that I really wanted to give it a try to come in and do my podcast a little bit earlier every day, right? People are in bed, right? They've got to work in the morning, or they've got kids they've got to get up with and appointments and stuff. And, I don't expect that people are going to hang out with me consistently at midnight and after. So, I gave it some thought over my holiday. I took off and did some provincial parks last week. If you didn't notice, if you didn't get a notification, I posted my first camp stay at Blue Lake Provincial Park. So if you want to go in and you have a 20 minutes, half hour, an hour, because it is an hour long, I recorded and documented my entire experience. It's something that I do. And because I explore the inside and the outside, those are part of my brand. And I wanted to make content, right? It is part of my goal setting. It is part of my accomplishing and setting goals and moving towards them. It is the evidence. Maybe not for everybody, but at the very least, it's that evidence for myself that I can accomplish. I can get things done. And this year came pretty close to not happening. But, sometimes when it gets right down to the nitty gritty, right, it's even like, going to school, always being that last person to class, always getting things accomplished in the last moment. That's the person I've always been. And it was part of the reason why my podcast was always being presented so late at night, every single night. And that was going on for months. So in that commitment to myself and in that commitment to my brand, I challenged myself to be here at 9:00. And that little bit of a chuckle, I made it in yesterday at 9:00. Today, skin of my teeth. But in that commitment to myself, it's the skin of my teeth. I am in. And again, I accomplished what I set out to do, what I had promised and committed to myself, right? We're going to see if each night I can show up live 9:00. So if you want to kind of hang out with me, if it's not too late, if you're still up and about, you want to come in and get some good mojo, because that's what it is. That's what the intent is in coming in. That's the title of my podcast. What's my good cheer? And of course, when I come in and I watch my lives for myself, I need these lessons just as much as anybody else does. For the most part, I just come in and I hit that live button and I just spiel. And I miss out on it too. And I need these lessons just as much as anybody else does. And I bumble along just like everybody else does. And, even though Cindy is just coming in and just in my own fashion, showing up, committing to that 9:00. There are conversations and experiences and little bits of magic that I don't always quite understand, right? But I would like to be in that receivership, right? Understanding that I matter and these gifts, right? If that's what they are, that you put out to the world, whether it is just in that understanding right? Sometimes it's in the experience. Sometimes it's living vicariously through other people's experiences. So again, if you want to come in and right, check out my first stay, my Blue Lake Provincial Park. I posted it today. If you want to come in and live a little vicariously through my experience, right? Being the evidence for myself, right? Because that's what it is. I'm creating the best life for myself, not just the best human being that I possibly can, but being the best human being. It's in those offerings that I give for myself, right? In setting those goals and chasing down my dreams, right? And if that's what I'm going to apply my energy to for the rest of my life, possibly, probably, then that's what I'm going to do. But again, when I come into my lives, right, I just get right into it, which in this moment, I'm going to grab the cards and get ready for that. I know there's always a spiel before I hit a card. And if you've never hung out with me before, I've got a deck here, and they're 54 powerful words. They're just powerful words. But again, in that flow and just showing up, right? And understanding that, as much as Cindy is showing up here in the moment, I am pretty certain, I am optimistic at the very least, that those other parts of me are showing up too, right? And that's part of the reason why I've got to come in and, right, take the lesson for myself, because I matter too. We all matter, and we all have something to contribute in this world, and we all do, right? It's just a matter of showing up for each other. And if I can show up in this little bit of movement that I'm making for myself in my own, right? I'm brand building is what I'm doing, but my brand is my movement, right? And, I have this idea that, maybe in this moment, maybe, in my entire lifetime, for as long as I'm here and showing up at 9 o'clock at night each night, that it won't be beneficial in this life for myself. I'm optimistic that it will, right? Right? That I didn't waste my entire life and go through the experiences that I did and not have them serve in some way, right? And in that serving, yes, because I do a little bit of shadow work. I I'm delving into it because I understand that if I believe that parts of me are coming back in another lifetime, and that, maybe in that experience of partnering up with another human somewheres down the line, that it won't be so difficult as it, right? I don't know how difficult it was in this lifetime, but sure did take a long time, because I was well into my 50s before I woke up to any of these ideas. It would be pretty amazing if I could wake up just a little bit earlier in time, that I could create something magnificent, right? And in understanding it is a partnership, right? And I think that was an understanding that I didn't have up until half a dozen years ago. And I'm treading water in that, but I hope it does some good down the line in generations, right? In that benefit, not just for myself, but for my sisters, that I do believe that, they might not be my sisters in my next life. They might be my best friends. They might be my parents. They might be cousins or family friends, but somehow we are part of the same network. And I hope that it would be easier, right? That maybe we won't struggle so hard, that we could probably make some movement for ourselves, maybe some great movement for ourselves. And again, when I say ourselves, it's me and those other parts of me, and it's that me that comes next, right? And whether it's in my, again, I believe we come into the same family generation after generation, maybe not playing the same role, right? But I think that mix up and well, it might be a conversation for another day, because it was something that it just came to my mind today, and I've just been rolling around a little bit in my noggin here a little bit, in respect to, how we are having some problems, right, in that partnership with ourselves. Because I think for the most part, most of us don't even understand that we have not just an obligation, but we do have a partnership with ourselves, right? And I think sometimes we become our own worst enemies in that we become sometimes a little bit. I'm trying to say this in a nice way, but slaves to ourselves, possibly servants to ourselves, and in a way that's good, because we should be stewards to each other and to ourselves, right? But lots of times I hear terminology and the way we treat ourselves and we treat others like us, and treat, right, coming from a dynamic family, and right, even having these kind of conversations, I believe these are probably conversations that, right, could have been resolved in our everyday, day to day, with the proper lessons, but we don't always have the proper lessons. We don't have those understandings. And because I believe in evolution too, right, that it's all tied together, right, creating the best human being I possibly can. But why am I doing that? Because we are creating an amazing world, an amazing community. And that's what it is. In this age of AI learning, we are this close to each other now, right? We are learning to be more tolerant at the very least with each other in this moment. But it's in that optimistic idea that, right, that we are going to be more intertwined. And being more intertwined, we have to be more loving to ourselves and more loving to each other. And I didn't mean for that to be a little bit of a spiel, but it is. I hit that live button, I come in and I just go into it. And that's why we have these cards, because these cards ground me, right, from not being a bouquet of helium balloons and just fluttering away in some of these ideas that come into my my brain. And I just had another thought that came there, and I thought, oh my goodness, but that's just some brand new information to me too, that I haven't even mulled over properly and played with it and experimented with it, right? And it's part of what I do, and it's part of what I bring to the table in those sometimes confusion, right? Sometimes in that mass hysteria. I like to walk into this, right, as a brand new, fresh day, not walk into what do you call that, crazy town, right? To the hairy, scary, right? To somebody else's dictation as to how it's supposed to be, right? Okay, Cindy, we're just gonna grab the card tonight. All proud of myself that I came in here, 9 o'clock again. We're going to do it again tomorrow. Again, if you want to come in and take a look, just go to my main page. You'll see my, right, because you guys were so much a part of that too, right? In that planning and in that little bit of hurry scurry of getting things done. And that was a lot of pressure for me because it's always in my intent that I want to be the evidence that it can be done. And I'm not putting the mush to myself, but I'm just leaving myself open so that all the little miracles and things that need to be done to get it done, to, right, to chase down what I really want to create for myself and be the evidence for others that it can be done. I have to leave myself open, right? So these things can come in and join forces in what I want to do. Yeah, so if you want to come in and take a look, just go to my main page. It's Blue Lake Provincial Park. I just posted it this afternoon. Let me know what you think. Technically, I am not technically inclined in any way. I did the very best that I could in that editing. It is an hour video, but it shows you a little bit of what Cindy's all about. And it's also in that partnership, right? In finding those things that make life enjoyable, that make life worthwhile, that help to calm the system down in a healthy, productive, and kind of a receiving kind of way, right? And I think that's the way it's supposed to be done, right? Because you're happy, you're joyful, right? You're having a good time, you're enjoying the views, you're in a calm state. Your system feels that, right? And if it feels that, maybe that will come to the surface, and right, and that's where all those little miracles and all those little add-ons come to, that, right, make the next transition a little bit easier. And that's the idea. It's in that transition to make it as enjoyable and not so confusing and frustrating and scary sometimes, right? Right? Heartbreaking sometimes too, and confusing sometimes too. But when it serves us, when it answers all those questions that we wake up to, when our system feels better, when we feel like we're walking into things instead of being thrown into things, that's everything. And that really is. Okay, you guys, enough of that. Let's just come in. Going to flip them over so I don't see the cards. And we're just going to grab a card, go into it for a couple of minutes. Again, if you've never hung out with me before, these are just 54 powerful words. Powerful words. Pick a card and we just fly with that and take note of the word during the course of your day, right? Let it hang out with you in the morning when you get up. Or maybe you'll wake up to a dream and it will be pertinent, in that moment. But hopefully, right, optimistically, that we'll learn by that word. I've never pulled a card and not been aware of it during the course of my day, and have it and not have it come up numerous times, not just once or twice, but in different conversations and experiences and experiments that it shows up. Okay, you guys, let's just grab a card. It's this one tonight. And the word we've got is, oh my goodness, it's a good word, you guys. I just really love this word. Remember what I was saying, that it is in my optimistic idea, like to be the evidence, right? To chase down my dreams and my goals and be the evidence to others that it can be done and it can happen. We can create that and create that sometimes out of nothing. The word we got tonight was inspiration. Inspiration is the realization that we can aspire to that too, right? And what was I saying in that, right? Because that's what it is just being the representation, right? Being the example to others, because that's what we get inspired by. We get inspired by lots of things, right? Inspiration is kind of, for me, tied up with that word wonder, because you're paying attention and you're awestruck by what you're seeing and by what you're hearing and by what you're experiencing, right? But and that's true when we bump up with experiences and when we sit in on the conversations, but really sit in on the conversations, right? And involve ourselves, just not as a spectator, just not as a student, but as a participant in that we can be the inspiration for each other, right? In the uniqueness of what each one of us is, because each one of us are inspired by different things, but in that living vicariously through other people's experiences, right? Maybe you don't like camping. Maybe you don't like provincial parks. Maybe you don't like the trees and landscapes and, right, the jibber jabber. But if you came in and watched my Blue Lake, right, provincial park tour video, maybe is something in that would inspire you, because that's my intent. That's why I take everybody along with me. That's why I set my goals, but also make sure that I document my goals. I don't just do that for myself, right? Because I do that because more of us have to understand, right? More of us have to recognize that we have to be the example for each other, right? That each one of us got to be the cheerleader for the next door neighbor, right? That we have to um, show to each other that it can be accomplished, right? And because we isolate ourselves so much that we're not rubbing shoulders with each other, that we're not really getting an opportunity to be inspired. For myself, right, I am grateful that I have experiences that I can be inspired by conversations and by landscapes and by experiences. But lots of times, like I said, we isolate ourselves like that. We have so few of them that there's not very many opportunities to be inspired by things. But when we do happen onto something or walk into something or live vicariously through somebody else's experience, right, that can be the evidence for others, right? And in that inspiration that we got, right, that we picked up, whether it's a beautiful landscape or a conversation or living vicariously through somebody else's experience, right? It can be the possibility that, we could have a realization that we can aspire to that too, right? And the next thing you know, right, somebody else is off and running and having that opportunity to inspire somebody else through their experience, right? Right? And you, like I said, you'll probably have a passion for something different. But I am inspired by so many different characters in this world, right? Even within my own dynamic family, each one of my sisters, we are so different from each other, but they inspire me all the time, right? Whether it's in their not giving up, in their entrepreneurship, in their kindnesses, right? In the love that they share, in their creative ideas, in the bond that we have. Like, right? We're just not connecting to each other enough, right? Sometimes we are our best friends, but we can't just have one friend because then we're only learning and experiencing through one perspective, right? And yeah, if there's anything I've learned, like I've learned lots, but I've learned lots because I've allowed myself to be open to rub up with a lot of different characters and allowed myself, right? I'm not going to say allowed myself because lots of times, I didn't have much of a choice but to live vicariously throughout the others' experiences. But in doing that, I had an opportunity to be inspired by others 100%, right? Okay, inspiration. Inspiration is the realization that we can aspire to that too. Okay, you guys, run off if you'd like to. Go check out my video that I posted today, right? You never know. You might be inspired to go off and do a little bit of that camping yourself. It was amazing. Amazing holiday, you guys. Check it out. If you like it, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow, 9 p.m.